I'm thinking now of words by the poet, the writer, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who observed once that in a house which becomes a home, one hands down and another takes up the heritage of mind and heart. Love, like a carefully loaded ship, crosses the gulf between generations. Therefore, we do not neglect the ceremonies of our passage when we wed, when we die, when we are blessed with a child, when we depart, and when we return. Let us bring up our children. It is not the place of some official to hand them their heritage. If others impart to our children our knowledge and ideals, they will lose all of us that is wordless and full of wonder. Let us build memories in our children, lest they drag out joyless lives, lest they allow treasures to be lost, because they have not been given the keys. We live not by things, but by the meanings of things. We are in a house of meaning here, that impart to the things of our lives, the building we inhabit, the words that we say, the meaning that gives us the courage to live through this day and another. And when we leave, we hope we have taken enough with this place and this time to sustain us for a week. And so we worship, give worth, revere, honor, and praise, that we may be lifted into meaning. I invite you to take part in worship now, to give words meaning by singing the lovely hymn number 44, We Sing of Golden Mornings.
Please join me in a responsive reading. In the depth of every serious doubt and every despair of truth, the passion for truth is still at work. Don't be seduced into a truth which is not really your truth, even if the seducer is your church or your party. Good morning. My name is Annie VandenBerg, and I am a Fountain Streeter. I welcome you to Fountain Street. Every week we have new friends visit with us. We welcome you especially today and invite you to stay after our gathering so that we can get to know one another a little better. I was married here at Fountain Street 16 years ago. My kids spent their first years of religious education here. I have had a dog and a cat and a caterpillar blessed here in this church. 2.5 years ago, I heard about the latest mass shooting or Grand Rapids teenager killed and decided that I couldn't stand it anymore. Along with some other amazing volunteers, we started holding local Moms Demand Action meetings. In trying to figure out where we would hold these meetings, I said, Fountain Street will do it. Since then, they have been so wonderful and helpful in providing us support, a space for our monthly meetings. Our next monthly meeting is next Sunday, 2 o'clock, room 108, by the way, and providing the social hall for larger events. My relationship to Fountain Street is important to me because whether I'm attending every week or not, I know that Fountain Street is here and that I can find a great progressive meeting or a yoga class or a worthy cause to donate to or a great speaker. It is my one-stop shop for doing the right thing. If you are a visitor today, hopefully Fountain Street can be the same for you, a place to discover what you are passionate about and a place to help you do something about it. Welcome to Fountain Street. You belong here.
Away, way back in the ages dark, away, way back in the ages dark, old man Noah built a sea-going ark. Old man Noah built a sea-going ark. Old man Noah had his nervous spells when he had to listen to the animals' yells. But when anything was doing, he was there with bells. He was a grand old sailor. Old man Noah knew a thing or two. He made them all play ball. Noah made them all play ball. Noah knew a thing or two, because he knew a thing or two. He thought he knew it all. Some say he wasn't all so grand. He was original sailor man. Old man Noah knew a thing or two. He was a grand old man. Said old man Noah to his wife one day. Said old man Noah to his wife one day. There's a big storm coming on the first day of May. There's a big storm coming on the first day of May. So he gathered all his family and made this remark. The sky is getting cloudy and it's getting rather dark. So gather all the animals and beat it to the ark. It's gonna rain tomorrow. Oh, man knew a thing or two. He made them all play ball. Noah made them all play ball. Noah knew a thing or two, because he knew a thing or two. He thought he knew it all. Some say he wasn't all so grand. He was original sailor man. Old man Noah knew a thing or two. He was a grand old man. The rain came down in showers prime. The rain came down in showers prime. The ark lit out on scheduled time. The ark lit out on scheduled time. And every day at 3:30, Noah played poker with the chimpanzee. Cried the ring-tailed monkey, I sadly grieve. Noah has a full house up his sleeve. Oh, man, Noah to a thing or two. He made them all play ball. Noah made them all play ball. Man, Noah to a thing or two, because he knew a thing or two. He thought he knew it all. Some say he wasn't all so grand. He was original sailor man. Old man Noah knew a thing or two. He was a grand old man. When Noah got the animals out to sea, when Noah got the animals out to sea, they organized a regular jubilee. They organized night's a regular jubilee. In the middle of the night, the elephant said, there's a couple of snakes crawled into my bed. Shut up, said Noah, you're drunk instead. Now I'm gonna lose my license. Oh, and Noah knew a thing or two. He made them all play ball. Noah made them all play ball. Noah knew a thing or two. Because he knew a thing or two, he thought he knew it all. Some say he wasn't all so bad. He was original sailor man. Old man, Noah knew a thing or two. He was a grand old man.
I do hope you noticed that our conductor's cap had the word captain on the back of it. Also on the front for those who needed to see that. Yes, indeed. So, oh, Captain, my Captain. Indeed. Thank you, and gentlemen. You're welcome to bring the gospel anytime you wish. In the Revised Common Lectionary for today, I find these words from Paul as he's writing to the community in Rome. But we also boast in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not disappoint us. I find that an intriguing bit of logic. Suffering, endurance. So hope is the product of human effort. Not something you pluck out of the sky or that falls into your lap. It is something that must be created out of the effort itself. John Steinbeck, in another location, says, we value virtue, but we do not discuss it. The honest bookkeeper, the faithful wife, the earnest scholar get little of our attention compared to the embezzler, the tramp, and the cheat. Wisdom there, is there not? And finally, from Adrienne Rich, an underappreciated philosopher as well as a nearly well-appreciated poet. Truthfulness, she writes, honor is not something which springs a blaze of itself. It has to be created between people. Let me read that sentence again. Truthfulness, honor, is not something which springs a blaze of itself. It has to be created between people. This is true in political situations. The quality and depth of our politics evolving from a group depends in large part on their understanding of honor. I think that sentence is worth hearing again. The quality and depth of the politics evolving from a group depends in large part on their understanding of honor. So there you have it. Character, virtue, honor. Keep those in mind when we get to the sermon part of this morning's worship. And I'll leave those as the readings today as seeds that may grow today or in some future moment. At this I spoke too soon. The organ will be heard one more time this Friday at a solstice concert. Our wonderful music director will be playing along with her friend and comrade in arms, or in mischief as the case may be, Phil Pletcher, a concert free to the public to honor the solstice, which sounds very pagan and is, and that's okay. But it's just an occasion, as Saint Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, to mind the ceremonies of our coming and going, the equinoxes and the solstices that tell us where we are in life or that we've passed another marking place. So do be here. It's in your order of worship. It will be warm. It is summer. So if you come in shirt sleeves, it'll be okay. If you come in shorts, it'll be okay. I see John Schweitzer. Where's John Schweitzer? Here you are. You wore long pants today. Last week you were in shorts and God didn't strike you dead. No? I was tempted personally, but I kept my cool. But this coming Friday, as long as you will pass muster with the police, you pass muster here at Fountain Street Church. I'm being a little lighthearted and a little flippant, but it is the time when we turn our thoughts to a more contemplative place. And I want to make note that yesterday and the day before have been strenuous for many of us. Yet again, another opportunity for racial justice has passed. Now, I want to hasten to say that a single trial of a single police officer is immaterial. It is year after year of activity, of loss, of death that seems always to be acceptable. That is the troubling thing. It is not this act or that act. It is all of them that grinds down the hope. Yeah, suffering creates endurance, but endurance does not last forever. And as it doesn't last, the hope goes with it. So back in January, I was bold enough to say it's time that we put one of these on our front lawn, and we did. Cool for us. It's been stolen 12 times. And I want to say, dude, if you have the nerve to steal it, do it in front of me. Show a little bit. Be a man, dude. Don't be sneaking it off. But see, that's the function of racism. It denies it exists at all. It steals it away, hoping you will shut up. What has this to do with prayer? Well, remember Paul? Suffering creates endurance. Endurance creates character. Character creates hope. We have all endured suffering. Whether it was personal, racial, gender, religious, political, maybe it was ethnic, I don't know. We've all had to bear suffering that we did not earn, that we did not deserve. Did it grind you down? Or did it clarify who you were? I don't know. But today I, as a white, straight American Anglo male, am dealing with the corrosion of shame. I am ashamed of my race, ashamed of being in a privileged world, in a privileged place that can steal signs with impunity and excuse officers easily. So I want you to dwell in shame for a moment. But we're Fountain Street Church. We're done with shame. Not if you deserve it. And we as a nation have a shame. And we need to dwell in that. We need to dwell in it as a reminder of how far we have yet to come. And that the journey is not over. Ancient of Days, we often offer up our hearts saying, help us and save us and be nice to us and how much we like you and things like that. But today, press down upon us the reality of our failings individually and collectively to be the people we said we are, to be the folks who are for justice no matter what, who deal fairly no matter how, who are open and alert to the realities of human evil, because we are none of us exempt. We seek a cleansing shame that does not drive us into a corner of inaction, but actually fortifies us to be more awake, more alert, more ready to respond. Dare us to own our shame, that we might find in it the seed of courage. And in this hour, we who have walked in here carrying burdens, each in our own lives, poverty, loss, dismay, or sorrow, we lift those up too, as the sufferings that all of us must endure from time to time, but which can nonetheless take us into deep and difficult places. We look here to each other and to forces larger than we can name, to keep on breathing, to keep on walking, to keep on hoping. And so we breathe in and out. Inhale, exhale, repeat. And in the silence, we wait for courage on all these things and all those matters which are known only by that truest prayer which we find in the presence of silence. You are a versatile bunch, gentlemen. We look forward to hearing your voices again in the not distant future. We may need to have a contest between the high voices and the low voices. Who knows? Thank you. It was just lovely. As I approach the words I wish to share with you today in the hope that they become true in some way even larger than myself, I think always of the consecrating power of those who went before us, whose lives spent in this church built it, continued it, sustained it, and gave it on to us who are here today. I lift up the names of those who in years past died at this time in years past: Jane Branston, Jane Evans, Sue Blandford, Sam Dix, Bill Umphrey, Chris Windsor, Evelyn Tonkel, Jean Johnson, Mary Meering. God, El Malay Rachamim, filled with mercy, dwelling in the heavens heights, bring proper rest between the wings of your presence to the souls of our beloveds who have gone to their eternal rest. May you, who are a source of mercy, shelter them beneath your wings, bind them to you and to us the living, that they may rest in peace, that we may be at peace. And let us say, Amen. First of all, you have to understand that I was maybe 16, and since the onset of puberty was profoundly uncomfortable in my skin, and that one of the ways I reacted to all those tempestuous changes that hormones provide was to eat. Those who remember Rhoda Morgenstern, a character from television, may remember she said that food was the one thing I liked that liked me back. It was true for me too, and so there I was at 16, all 240 pounds of me, standing at Hecht's department store in Baltimore in the menswear section, trying on a jacket and tie, my mother looking on and shaking her head. She kept suggesting colorful ties and textured jackets, and I kept picking out severely simple ties and dark jackets. The clerk, with her tape hung around her neck, ominously recording my girth a few minutes earlier, asked me what I wanted, and I replied, "Well, I'm pretty conservative." That may be the last time I use that term to describe myself. This is the third in 4 parts of a series in which I have looked at common words we bandy about, liberal, conservative, Christian, and looked for and recall that they mean more than we often hear them, and that we lose their complexity by assigning them big capital case meanings like liberal, like Christian, like conservative. I'll finish in September with an unmatched pair. My title on Labor Day will be Why I'm Religious But Not Spiritual. Today, though, I'm looking at conservative. And I'm reminding you that conservatism is not the same as being conservative. It's not just a political point of view, but a human quality that is vital and good and part of a healthy liberal church. And we need to recover that if we expect to be living and vital for others. Now, if liberalism comes from liberality, that generosity of thought, and it arises in turn from humility, a willingness to see others as having something to say and that you're not the last word. Conservatism comes from a desire to conserve something, to give it some degree of value, a concept that I will deem right now honor, to honor something. When I was a boy younger than 16, before I laid on the pounds, each Friday evening meant I was walking over to a local Lutheran church for my Boy Scout meeting. There we would raise our right arms and recite the Scout oath that begins, and I remember it to this day. If you're a Scout, you may join me. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, and to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. I know that better than the Lord's Prayer. And I believe in it more, in fact. For 5 years, that ritual, that community, that idea was part of my life and identity, until finally the pounds, the hormones, and the college entrance exams made it impossible. Even as the nation awoke to civil rights, even as my church, my Unitarian Universalist Church, with the war in Vietnam, was being deconstructed, and I agreed, even as the counterculture arose and my friends began wearing clothing I could not imagine wearing. Remember, I'm pretty conservative. I remained a scout. Despite being religious in a liberal way, being a political liberal as my parents were, I believed in the idea of duty and honor. To me, that meant living up to that other Boy Scout standard, the Scout Law. I remember all 12 of those too. A scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. They are etched upon my heart. And what has this to do with conservatism and being conservative? Well, modern political conservatism predates all of us by a century and a half. It grew up in the grim shadow of the French Revolution, where violence and terror made revolutionary change bloody and awful. And it was Edmund in England who gave voice and substance to modern conservatism and his wariness of radical change and its powers to destroy. It's a long bit of work. I'm not going to quote him, but I will quote Christopher Hitchens, something of a latter-day conservative in his ways, who described Burke this way. If modern conservatism can be held to derive from Burke, it is not just because he appealed to property owners in behalf of stability, but also because he appealed to an everyday interest in the preservation of the ancestral and the immemorial. There it is. To conserve the ancestral, to preserve the immemorial. That is where conservatism begins. And those virtues I learned from the Boy Scouts. But not just them. My parents were conservative in that way too, especially my father, and today is Father's Day after all. My parents were liberal Democrats, but my dad served in the war. And when we went to Memorial Day parades, which we did, he took off his hat when the flag passed, because that's what a gentleman did. He wore a hat, which was itself something we no longer do, and forgive me, except for those who wear baseball caps. And his father, who did not serve in any war, being too old for any of them, I remember as a severe man who wore a suit and a waistcoat even in the summer. A certain gravity attended them that meant life was serious and was to be carried with some degree of earnestness. It was an adult world with adult responsibilities, and I, as a boy, would have to shoulder those responsibilities when I became a man, and I believed in those things, and I still do. This, for me, is what honor means, to be an adult, to shoulder responsibilities, to preserve what is worth keeping, to be worthy of those who came before. Keeping, preserving, conserving, honoring, revering, these are all conservative things, and yes, also essential to liberalism. It might be easier to understand what I mean if I were to substitute conservation and conservationism for the word conservative, but they are related to the same word, are they not? To preserve, conserve that which is worth holding on to, whether it be a bird or a tradition. Isn't it curious that most liberals are the most ardent conservationists? We have the idea. And most modern conservatives are among the most indifferent conservationists. They have clearly lost some of what it means to be conservative. The question is always is what to preserve. I am reading these days very slowly a famous polemic by Reinhold Niebuhr, the great critic of liberal religion, in one of his great books, Moral Man and Immoral Society. It is not what you think, as Niebuhr is very left-wing in his politics, even as he is highly critical of liberal religion. And in his book about society itself, he writes, "The question which confronts society is how to eliminate social injustice by methods which offer some fair opportunity for abolishing what is evil in our present society without destroying what is worth preserving in it." And he goes on, "and without running the risk of substituting new abuses and injustices for those abolished." That's a true conservative statement. And yet he is not saying to preserve everything. He is talking instantly about the reality of social injustice. That it does exist, that the evil of humans can get together and do dreadful things to each other. His aim is not simply to preserve everything, or even to preserve, but to fulfill, to transform, to make good on a promise that was not the one he made, but one he adopted, and to give it forward in a state more complete than he received it. He admits that evils do exist, that they must be addressed, and in this he is a liberal par excellence. He is exactly our kind of guy. We should read more about him. He applies a conservative attitude toward ideologies of all kinds, a wise skepticism about all human contraptions. As he elsewhere wrote, and you can find in our hymn book if you look it up, "No virtuous act is quite as virtuous from the standpoint of our friend as it is from our own standpoint." Think about that. We all forgive ourselves instantly. I meant nothing wrong. And yet we do make mistakes. This is a liberal church that has been and still is a home not only to political liberals, but to some political conservatives. They feel a little lonesome from time to time, and I can't say I blame them. But that's possible here because conservative has always meant that skepticism about random and unthought change, or random and unthought preservation. It has been a skepticism about the big promises of the Bible or of Washington. Liberal religion began with a skepticism about religion regarding the origins of life, and there's Mr. Darwin to prove we thought he raised a valid doubt about the Bible. Liberal religion began when science began to erode the claims of the orthodox, and we began to doubt them. The skeptical eye, the dubious mind, is as important to us as any belief. And among some religious liberals, even religion is all but withered. That may have prompted one of my favorite philosophers, Alfred North Whitehead, to observe that my religion of youth, the Unitarians, he wrote about them, "A Unitarian is a person who believes in, at most, one God." Emphasis on the at most part. That's kind of where we are. It's okay to ponder it, but until the evidence is in, I'm going to remain a little dubious. And good for you. Skepticism is where the modern liberal and the modern conservative still overlap. But that overlap is less evident now. Instead, what we have devolved to in our times is a bunch of credulous liberals, whom I mentioned last time, whose minds are so open that their brains fall out. People whom conservatives sometimes rightly say have no spine. And then there are the dogmatic conservatives for whom everything is settled from the nature of God to how many tax rates and how much we should be taxed. We may have a spine, but also have such rock ribs that their hearts never get to expand. You remember a bumper sticker, "God said it, I believe it, that settles it"? There's the dogmatic conservative. There are no questions. The truth is known. If you're in disagreement, you are obviously wrong. The conservative character that created living liberalism has been packed off like an unwanted relative, and we need to reclaim it. not the skepticism, but the conserving part. Well, as you can tell, I am now almost 50 years older and 75 pounds lighter. I favor much more colorful ties. But I have to tell you, I am no more at home in my skin today than I was 50 years ago. Now I may not see the bulges of adiposity, I see the wrinkles and sags of antiquity. I will always have crooked teeth. I will never have an attractive smile. My voice is a scathing tenor that no one loves, including me. When I am not being the preacher or the minister, you will find me sitting in a corner trying to avoid attention. Because you see, part of honor that I learned is modesty, not pretending to be more than you are, owning your limits as well as your powers. But we live these days in immodest times when hiding your light under a bushel is considered poor publicity, not good sense. We live in dishonorable times where winning is the measure of virtue and wealth is a signal of intelligence. Fortune comes these days only to the self-confident and the self-aggrandizing, as our president demonstrates day in and day out. Honor seems limited to unreconstructed Southerners like our Attorney General, who all but flung down his gauntlet in ire in front of the committee this week. These are honor and these are modesty in our modern days, and they gain applause and approval, and my heart breaks. Can we really, though, be surprised that liberal and conservative parties are the way they are because they have lost these virtues? I am not surprised. Dismayed, disappointed, yes, but I am not surprised. Can we really be surprised that they have decayed into shadows of their nobler selves in trying to climb the false ladder of power and success? That makes me an anachronism in these times, but as I'm over 60, being anachronistic is my task. I am a conservative liberal. The noun liberal modified by the adjective conservative. I am liberal in the humble sense that I do not know the whole truth, and I seek to know more truth wherever it is, whatever it is, and whoever knows it. I am liberal because I believe in liberty and justice for all, and I believe in using the powers of government to help that happen as fast as we can. I am conservative in that I am cautious about any claim of truth from others, and modestly any claim I make for them myself. I am conservative in my liberalism because I know that pride goeth before every fall, even the pride of good intentions, and no system of religion or politics is possibly good enough to serve everyone justly. I believe we must conserve the legacy of those before us. Yes, the blessings of liberty and justice that have been secured, but that we must secure far more than we have. And sitting back on our laurels is not conservatism, but complacency. And equally important, as the great old philosopher George Santayana observed, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it, which is why we need to remember Juneteenth, why we have to remember all the bad news as well as the good news, because the truth will not set us free until we know it. I believe in conservative things like virtue and honor. I believe in liberal things like justice and equity, and I believe in both because neither honor nor law will do it by themselves. On this Father's Day, nearly 20 years after my father's death, he remains a model for me and probably for many men sitting out there right now. And I speak to you men, a day when we lift up men as the capacity to be honorable human beings, when that is the gift we can give that we have forgotten we had to learn. As an aging man myself, I know well how imperfect he was now, and I love him all the more for it. But I still, each day, find myself wanting to measure up to him and finding myself falling short. And isn't it great that he is still a goal I can aspire to meet? I do not wish to eclipse my father. I wish to surpass him even as I honor him. That desire I have, to become something worthy of my life, to do something that matters, to leave a legacy worth remembering, is what he gave me, what his grandfather gave him. And is that a liberal or conservative thing? No, that is, dare I say it, a manly thing, a humanly thing. And it is what we are about here. And it is to liberate that desire for the human hope, to make a legacy that we exist. To be human is to conserve and preserve the gifts we have received, even the hard ones. It is to honor and revere them for the truth they tell, and then to build upon them a world that our descendants will look back and receive as the gift worthy of their receipt. Pray, give me the strength to continue doing that until I breathe no more. Until I breathe no more. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be found true in thy sight, thou who art my rock and my Redeemer. Amen.